Laura Nunu. She's a medical doctor and she got a lot of qualification in public health. So we welcome her. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you. There is a lot of points that are made today. There have been a brilliant presentation by amazing, scholars. So I thought I will have a little time to incorporate that, but I guess I'm caught up. So yeah, then I will present to you what I have. And if I remember something, I will definitely incorporate. And to my sister Rachel about identity, that's actually a topic which is of my heart. I think it's become a universal phenomenon that we are all trying to answer the question, who are we really? And I agree with Dr. Al-Shahi that we have to refrain from, throwing everything into the colonial plate, because actually we are piece and parcel of that. And above all, we all share this identity. And you have made a brilliant presentation by, the alternative. And maybe that's the way we have to go. Instead of saying that there's one logos, what is the alternative? And I did that last year by presenting identity from the concept of unity in diversity, which I will also speak about briefly because it connects to what I'm speaking here. But then afterwards, I will actually conclude by my topic. So today I will speak about communal conflicts as a tool for power in South Sudan. I will explain the topic and I will introduce conceptual framework, which is actually the unity in diversity concept, and conclude with few recommendations. Yeah, communal conflicts as a tool for power in South Sudan. I think there are different ways of explaining communal conflicts, but in this particular context, I would like to define it as armed wars between different ethnic groups and within the same ethnic groups. Most of the time when people talk of communal conflicts, it has been done from the discussion that it's a war or armed wars over scarce essential resources as a result of natural disasters or man-made disaster. In the case of South Sudan, all these are there, the natural disaster and also the man-made disaster at the cause of conflicts. But here I will specifically speak of man-made disaster for the purpose of political power. I think for us to answer that question, we need to, if we want to know how are the communal conflicts used as a tool for political power, it comes as a follow-up of the question we need to ask ourselves, is the war in South Sudan ethnic or civil? And that follow two other questions, because then you have to ask also the question, who are the South Sudanese and who own the state of South Sudan? So all this narrative can tie it up into how the communal conflicts become a tool for political power. And as I've already said, last year I spoke about identity crisis of the South Sudanese people. And I conclude by saying that the SPLM and SPLM political party did not intend to create a national identity. Because if they did, they will have actually make every effort to see into it that South Sudanese are not only proud of national identity, but they also feel as part of one people and one nation. And that comes to the aspect of what actually Rachel has been talking about, the identity can be of two creation. That is one is essential and one is constructive. And in this construction, it's an effort, that take a collective approach whereby the citizen and the system and their leaders all are engaged in it. And I guess the SPLM did not put an effort into constructing that unified identity. It's not something that only, South Sudanese knew of. It's also, some international experts like people like Clement Pinat also wrote about it. And what she said is that SPLM was founded on the basis of ethnic supremacy. So it is actually the outcome of that foundation that led to the identity crisis. Because at the end of the day, they did not even own their own manifesto, and everything that have been promised to the people of South Sudan, the promised country, the dream country was turned up into a total nightmare. So SPLM actually, as we speak, don't exist because they have broken down into pieces and they were not even able to unify themselves. So the state of South Sudan has been hijacked by tribal elites. As a result, the people continue to live in a relentless and protracted ethnic conflict, vicious cycle of violence and crisis of governance, characterized by endemic policy of ethnicized state formation and absence of cohesive national identity and broken social fabric that has debilitated at reform through negotiated peace agreement, which all failed to the implementation because of lack of political will, as admitted lately by the Troika countries. I'm just, I just summarize what have been said, by the previous speakers, because this is the reality we are dealing with now. And the economic mismanagement of the country with utter impunity and on a grand scale, as continuously documented by this century reports. South Sudan as a state has collapsed under an institution that creates pervasive and perennial ethnicized system corruption. So that's the reality of South Sudan at the moment we are speaking of. So how did this tribalize or ethnize militia as a tool of power control the state of South Sudan? As we speak of today, perennial insecurity and militarized ethnic groups by South Sudanese generals in SSPDF, that's South Sudanese People Defense Force, and militia forces, exercise political control over the state affairs through continuous genocides and terror against innocent civilians. And for this example, for this particular point, I have few generals that I will mention as example. Let's take, for example, General Paul Malong. Paul Malong has been, the founder and the father of Matianganyor and Dukuben. And this group have been known of the atrocity they have done to the Nuer ethnic group and other ethnicities. And some of them have been, this group have been discussed as, cattle headers to terrorize communities in the area, especially of Equatoria. And we have also Dr. Riek Machar, who used the White Army, which is also a tribal militia, to fight his power struggle war, against his counterpart, President Salva Kiir. And we have also General Johnson Oling, who has this Agwelek, which is also a ethnicized or tribalized militia. And we have General Simon and the Kitgweng, all these tribal militias. So in reality, South Sudanese or South Sudan as a state do not have armed forces, which is actually national in character. So the reality is, and the level of atrocities committed by this force are really mind-boggling. The killing, the fire squatting, you name it, it's really mind-boggling, and it's really shocking to the psyche. And it makes one ask the question: does humanity really exist? If it does, what does it mean to be human in South Sudan? And further than that, the state has collapsed as a result of all this. The state has collapsed, and the social fabric is broken, and there is lack of trust among citizens. And this has been also narrated in the peace agreement, the RRCs. Some of the reasons in the former presentation, some of the reason is that because actually there is lack of trust within the leaders and also now within the communities. because everything has been ethnicized. So the way forward, what is the hope for South Sudan? Can South Sudanese in their diverse ethnicity? If so, how? And how can we South Sudanese constitute a nation that we can all be proud of? Narrative, I will go back to the concept of unity in diversity. Unity in diversity actually developed as a, sorry, I'm getting emotional. You know, the truth of the matter is we really love their country. It has been something we have been dreaming of from our ancestors for, I don't know how many centuries of years or even decades recently. So the concept of unity in diversity is simply saying that there is unity in diversity because every single diverse entity is a unique essence of the whole. And as human, we are a global diversity of unity in our humanity. What does that mean? Actually, I cut off a lot of slides because I thought actually I will not have enough time to explain them all. But if we put this in the context of South Sudan, South Sudan is definitely like any other place in the world is made of diverse ethnicity or diverse people. So for South Sudanese to come together and create a country, it needs each and every one of us as individuals, as organization, or if we go ethnic, if we decide to go ethnic, as every ethnicity. But if we are denying these basic rights of us as humanity, then it's gonna be a problem. There is no way around this because actually at the end of the day, no one wants to be a minority of other majority. So in the case of, from this concept of unity in diversity, there is a long process about this. I would love actually to talk of that, but that will be for another maybe conference. There are three basics component of identity from the concept of unity identity I came up with, is that the identity markers for every human being is people, culture, and place. I think someone, asked this question before. So people, even if now, you know, someone just stop you on the way and asks you about who are you, on your narrative of explaining who you are, you will talk about the place, you will talk about something of your culture that identify you, and you will talk of what actually Rachel before also mentioned, something of you as a person, as a people, or as a person. That is, you know, the natural features that identify you. So these three are at the bottom or at the core of identity. And if we take all these three elements, the people or persons are the center of this, because actually there is no place or culture without people practicing. There is no culture without people practicing it, or there is not a place which is void of people. People actually naturally live on land, so there must be place. So these three are interlinked, and the dynamic of all these three is what make identity. And culture has its own values. At the social level, we have our social values, but in the political level, there are also values that, you know, determines conflicts or peaceful coexistence. And these determinants of values are actually the core values also explained in the principle of human rights and People's Charter of Rights. So in any case, if you find there is conflict in any place in the world, these elements must be part of it, whether that is injustice or inequality or lack of freedom or domination or prejudice. There must be one of these elements as a backdrop of that conflict. So in the case of national identity, if we take these three components and we want to make a state out of it. Then in the case of South Sudan, for us to really create a state, there must be an equality of, representation. And I hear sometimes people talk of, South Sudan got into crisis because there is not inclusion. There is lack of inclusivity. But for me, I think inclusivity makes sense, like in the European context, where the minority want to be, are being included into the majority. That's where the inclusivity makes sense. Because there is a majority that have established institutions, then now the new, like, migrant minorities are coming, and it is for them also to benefit from the privilege of the minority or majority need to be included. But in the context of South Sudan, where we are starting from fresh, from zero, building a country, why would one group need to be included into another group? So where did that rift even come from, since we are starting from the same ground? So there is not inclusivity, because actually people are starting from the basis. What should be talked of is equality. And that's why we are building a nation. We are supposed to look at how the three regions, because that's where the people of South Sudan are. If you are talking of people of South Sudan, historically, the people of South Sudan can be found in the region of Bahr al-Ghazal, Equatoria, and Upper Nile. And it will take all these three groups of people with their diverse culture to constitute a state. And for that, one of the model that I found actually appealing into how the diverse group can come together to build a nation is the P-NADAFA model. And what that is saying is that the P-NADAFA model is actually what they are trying to brought to the table as an alternative for state building is from a shared union state, where the three regions are equal, because they actually they share equal rights, as I have explained in the previous slide, and they share equal rights, and these rights are fundamental human rights and Charter of People Rights. And it is from this perspective of equality, where each region are equal and free to determine their destiny. And in this union state, the democracy become an important element, because democracy really has its basis on equality. Without feeling being equal in rights, or whether in having your voice, the rights of having your voice heard, or the right of even having freedom of choice, then democracy does not have any meaning. Democracy first rests on the basis that there is equality, and equal freedom. So the three regions in their prospective right of freedom will come together and form the state of South Sudan. And what is the importance of this is that when there is the people of South Sudan want to constitute a state through constitution making process, then given on the aspect of the unit, the component that identify them is the place and persons and the culture, each region will have their own way of coming together and have a say on the constitution making process that fit them. And in that way, we can have also the diversity of, all the cultures coming together coherently than, having one aspect of, ideology or method or culture, in this case, culture, dominating the rest. I will stop here.
Laura, thank you very much indeed for this. And Laura will be here for her question and answer. Thank you. Laura. Okay, thanks.
Thank you, Ahmed. So I'd like to invite questions from the audience in the room, and also questions again from participants online. We still have at least 22 participants online. Again, participants online, you can put your questions into the Q&A box, and in the audience in the room, and to those online, please specify who your question is for. And if you'd like to introduce yourself when asking your question, please do. Questions can be directed to Laura.
My name is Federico, and my question, I think, Laura, from the title of your presentation has really caught my attention. And I wish you would explain a little bit on how do you see that the communal conflict is promoting or serving those who are in power.
Yeah, thank you so much. I would like to call you uncle. I hope you are not offended by that. Uncle, yeah, Uncle Federico for the question. Yeah, communal conflict promote the interests of those in power. I think there is one person who also wrote extensively about communal conflict is Dr. Juk Madud. He also mentioned how this conflict was and still is a cultural thing, but it has been taken advantage of by the ruling elites. So I think to me, actually, it really makes sense because actually, as I've explained before, at this point, we don't know whether we are fighting an ethnic war or we are fighting civil war because the two get really messed up. So the better way of describing is, say, ethno-political war. Let's call it like that because that's what exactly it is. So how it promotes the interests of the elites is they have leverage in this ethnic cultural aspect and really make use of it to promote their own agenda. And one of the things is that, the Corium Battalion or the Dukuben or the Matianganyo, these are actually tribal militia, but they are being discussed as, and when they were actually recruited, trained, they were actually included in the supposed national army. To Dukuben is to protect the president. So actually saving him well, he just leveraged on his communal cultural aspect to leverage his leverage his power. And the same with Dr. Riak. Dr. Riak also, when he found himself in conflict with his counterpart, President Kiir, he went and leveraged on the White Army to support his war for power struggle, which is actually a rivalry war. And it's serving them well because actually it's feeding the community with the narrative they are used to hear, that this is your war because when they go to the community, of course they say this your president is being taken, for example. Your president's seat is being taken. So you need to fight for that. So that's how they are benefiting from it.
Thank you, Laura. I'll present you a question that's been submitted online by Jacob Walla. His question was, can you elaborate on the role of cattle rustling between pastoralists and child abduction? Is that something you can comment on, and that the role of that as in intertribal, intercommunal conflict?
Well, I will give just a brief explanation to that, because culturally, when this community who are used to cattle wrestling, it's actually go hand in hand most of the time with also abduction of kids. So this has been something that has been going on. But actually now expanding it and making it as a tool for political power, then of course it becomes a kind of pseudo recruitment, if you like, of abducting children and recruiting them into these forces. This is basically how it has been, and I suggest that's the way it has always it has gone. So it is, yes. The only explanation I will give here is actually it is helping them in the recruitment process.
Hello, yeah, my name is Ahmed. I want to ask you about the arming the private arms. Do you think that is it because of the existential threat, the tribe? So some of these people arm themselves. Because if you look at the wars going on, some people they have arms, going to some of the community, killing, raping their girls and stuff like that. Some people force themselves to arm themselves. I'm not supportive, but in a situation like that, people don't have what is it called? Some people don't have
Protection.
They don't have the choice, you know, because otherwise, one of the two. When you see your mother or somebody being raped in front of you, and your child being raped, what do you expect?
Yeah.
You know, this is what people do. Some of the people did.
Yeah.
You know? So until we have a proper government in South Sudan, not using their arm or national armor against the citizen, something like that will go. Otherwise, the threat you can have in the Pretoria.
Yeah. Yeah, I got your point. Thank you so much. I think you raised a very important point, because that's actually at the gist of my discussion also. How is this communal phenomena become, you know, a kind of spread out to the whole of the country? Because basically and historically, this has been mainly happening, I here emphasize mainly happening in the region of Upper Nile and Bahr al-Ghazal. This does not mean that we don't have communal conflict in the region of Equatoria to start with. But if you see the rate and you see the intensity and the frequency of occurring was not that much. But now, because actually the tribal elites are using that as leveraging on that and actually discuss you know, tribal militia in the form of, you know, cattle headers who are coming into the areas of people, you know, who are actually not cattle raiders with very sophisticated weapon. Then you start to ask yourself, are these really cattle raiders? Or who are they actually? And at the same time, then and the atrocity they are committing, the government even is not taking action against it. No one is being counted for what is happening. Then you really get to wonder what is really happening here. And then, of course, if we have a government in South Sudan, these people should not be subjected into this atrocity. As soon as they are subjected, of course, then it becomes a self-defense, isn't it? Somebody has to defend themselves from the atrocity being done to them. I don't promote that. I don't know who is doing that, but this is common sense, isn't it?
Richard, so we'll have one more, please.
Thank you. I think the best to say at this point in time is to appreciate the papers presented by various speakers. As for Laura, yours is especially brilliant in that you provide some kind of solution as well as region. But the solution is very straightforward. The South Sudanese have to stop blaming other people, including the British. They should stop blaming other people. We have an independent country now. It is ours. The solution is in our hands. Our friends, the Americans, the Norwegians, the British, are helping us. But we are working in the opposite direction. We are not helping ourselves. Because we don't stand up. If you don't stand up for your kids, whom do you expect in this world to stand up for you? It stand up all of you, and the question of South Sudan will be solved. You are talking of militia. There is no national army in South Sudan. The so-called unified national forces. It is the repetition of the same thing. It is just like putting a bottle of whiskey in a bottle of water and writing water when it is whiskey. You think that it is shame. So the best we can go with is that the solution is very straightforward. It is in our hand. Everybody has to stand up to be counted. Form your national army for you. Form your own national army. It's not a joke. I'm serious. If everybody has got an army, every ethnic group has got you have a national army by default.
Carlo. So, yeah, thank you very much.
That's a radical one. We hope we could not get that far, yeah. Mr. Ambassador.
The ambassador, yes. This is the last question, and then we move on because two more speakers. Yeah.
Mine is not actually, it's not a question, but rather a comment. I've sat here to listen. I'm a part of the government and I'm part of you. You cannot run away from your citizen. You have to listen. I think that is the duty of the government, to listen to the concern of the citizen. I think I heard your concern, and so other people who have made the representation today, which are brilliant. The government must hear what what it doesn't need to hear. I think that's correct, because that is the duty of citizen. We have to hear that. But what I'm saying is that what we need, if we given peace and security and stability in South Sudan, in fact, South Sudan can be one of the best model countries with the resources or with the human resources and the rest. So my plea to you, citizens of South Sudan, is that actually let's say among us, we must question ourselves and say, okay, what is the way forward? The way forward definitely is not war. The way forward definitely is not forming more armies. The way forward is to disarm and address the issues that challenge the rule of law, such that everybody is accountable by the constitution and by law. And that's really what matters, because at the end of the day, it is the service of the people of South Sudan. If you are a leader, we have to serve the people of South Sudan. If you are a citizen also, the citizen has a responsibility and duties, as well as the government has its own duties. So I want to say it is important that the citizen also understand what a responsibility. You need to unite your people. You need to unite yourself, whether you are here or at home. And I want to testify to the fact that the majority of citizens who are here in London, when we had the referendum, they voted 98%, because I was the one presiding on the years of South Sudan at that time. So nobody should tell you that you have actually not contributed. Any of us has contributed in the best way they can. So why would you want to throw away, okay, and achieve independence that you have done? So if no, what I'm saying, you're not throwing away, but I'm saying if you want to win a goal. If you want to win, you better get a goal. Not the if that's the issue. Cast with the zahab. Rather than suddenly so if you're a good citizen. What we are saying, let's implement peace, such that you citizens choose the constitution and the leadership you like, but don't throw it away. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Ambassador. Very much appreciated.
I appreciate it. Thank you. So thank you very much, Laura.
Yeah, thank you.
It's very kind.
Yeah.